Welcome to the Thriving Farmer Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Kilpatrick. Our mission is to inspire, educate, and celebrate sustainable farming. We believe that you can build a profitable, sustainable farm that gives you true farm freedom. Join us as we talk to farmers, innovators, educators, and entrepreneurs to glean their top takeaways in business and life. This episode is brought to you by Erika. Stop interruptions and focus on what matters most. Delegate repetitive duties in your tunnel to Erika. Sleep better knowing that they'll call you if anything goes wrong in your greenhouse. Be sure to check out their homepage for useful advice on how to simplify your farm life. Orisha, that is ORISHA.io.
Farmers, do you want to see weeding tools before you buy them? Learn how to adjust cultivators in the field? Meet farmers from all over the country and see what's new in weeding tools. Then make plans today to attend the Midwest Mechanical Weed Control Field Day, September 11th at Purdue's Horticultural Research Farm in Lafayette, Indiana. At this full-day event, you'll see weeding tool demos of all scales in beets, cabbage, and corn. Everything from hand tools to two-wheel tractors, cultivating tractors, up to large row crop tractors. The morning trade show and education sessions are a great time to learn more and brush up your skills. Lunch is a great time to meet farmers from all over the country. And in the afternoon, the field demos of all scales will keep you interested and give you plenty to talk about and think about on the way home. That's the Midwest Mechanical Weed Control Field Day, September 11th in Lafayette, Indiana. You can find it by Googling Midwest Mechanical Weed Control Field Day or go to thelandconnection.org. See you there.
Hey, Thriving Farmers. Michael Kilpatrick here with another episode of the Thriving Farmer Podcast. And today my guest is Erika Tebbens, who is the Director of Impact at Taste the Local Difference. Taste the Local Difference is a women-owned and women-led local food marketing agency for purpose-driven food and farm businesses. While businesses can hire Taste the Local Difference directly, one thing that sets them apart is their impact partnerships, which Erika oversees. By partnering with economic development agencies, nonprofits, schools, health departments, farmers markets, food system support organizations, state agencies, federal programs, and more across the U.S., they help expand the impact local food can have for both producers and consumers. Before joining TLD, Erika spent a decade working with entrepreneurs on their sales and growth strategy, and she used to have a very small farm and apiary in upstate New York. And you and I have collaborated on a few things, and you used to work for us at the farmers market, and.
Yes. We go way back. And people might know me from like your summit or a lot of different things.
Yeah, and you've been on the podcast at least once before, if not not twice. So yeah. So basically you have an excellent background in sales, marketing, retail, customers, just understand the journey, the customer journey, all of that. And today we're going to talk about emails and email marketing.
Yeah. I'm excited.
All right, so let's kind of talk for farmers who are like in the big picture here. Why would they want to do email marketing? How is that different than, let's say, social media or having a website or something like that?
Yeah, so I know that, social media gets a lot of airtime when people are thinking about their marketing, right? Because it's a thing that is always evolving. There's new platforms, new trends. It's a lot of new, right? So it gets a lot of people talking about it, right? And it also seems like a thing that there's a lot to know and a lot to learn and a lot to keep up with. But the reality is that email marketing is still more effective than social media. Even if you are listening to this and you're thinking like, I don't check my email that much, like how effective can it be? Besides word of mouth, which is still, a trusted recommendation from somebody else is always going to be top. But second to that is still email marketing. And the nice thing about email marketing is that it is not at the mercy of algorithms, and you also own your list. So if you ever get locked out of your Facebook, your Instagram, your TikTok, whatever, which can happen even if you've done nothing wrong, sometimes it just happens, you are not out the ability to communicate with your customers, your potential customers, and all that work you've put in. So you own that list. You can move it from platform to platform, email platform to different email platform if you want. And so it is an actual like value asset in your business.
And where in the customer journey is email appropriate to use or should we start using?
Yeah. Ooh, I like this question. So email is really great for a few things. So email is wonderful once people already have some sort of awareness of you, to be able to learn more about you and to begin to like nurture that relationship. And then it's also a really great tool for keeping people updated on things you have going on, and then also obviously for making sales. But, people have to know that you exist before they can get onto your email list. So there are some things that you can do, to get out in front of folks in order so that they know that you're around, so they can join your email list. But once they are on your email list, you can start to build that relationship and build the trust that is really necessary before people are willing to, take out their debit card and pay you.
And I think the important thing is obviously like social media typically is a lot more useful for getting new customers, pulling people in. But email, I find, is, yes, you can nurture with social media too. But email, I think, is especially helpful when we're trying to nurture that long-term relationship. And it also is good if you want to, I don't know, maybe share different information than you want on social media. It's good for private information, as it were. Maybe you just want to give them more, a more personal look at something going on in the farm or something like that. And that's where that email can be incredibly helpful for.
Yeah, and it's also a nice way to have more of like a private back and forth. I mean, yes, on different social platforms, people can send you private messages and stuff depending on how you have it set up. But, that can sometimes be hard to track. Things can get lost if you're not following each other. They can get sent to these like other folders that you might not end up seeing. And so with email, if you're putting something out there and you're actually asking people like, hey, fill out this survey, right? Like, what do you want to see us grow next year? Or fill out this like CSA survey, or, tell us like, this or that. What do you think? Or like, what's your favorite thing you've made with our produce this year? Whatever it could be, right? A lot of times people will feel more comfortable maybe responding in there depending on what it is, rather than like public comments on a social post.
Well, especially let's say you're working with, you have like a health and wellness brand, like we have our Fire Cider and things like that, and we offer different wellness products. There's a lot of personal things talked about typically in that. And so, I mean, we're always surprised at what people will share with us. And, you definitely don't want a lot of that stuff shared on social media. That's definitely something you want to try to keep in the email.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. All right, so let's say we've talked about the reason for wanting to do email. Let's talk about the how. I mean, so how do you get email and get people on your email list?
Yeah. So, obviously, like we talked about, it's, you're really going to be able to build those long-term relationships with customers. But like I said, they have to know that you exist first. So it's really important to think about different places where people might come across you. So if you sell at markets, whether it's regularly or like sporadically, one of the easiest things you can do, especially nowadays, because people almost always have like a smartphone in their pocket, and I know you and I used to do this when I worked for you, is you can set up a QR code. So for people that don't know, there's sort of those funny square squiggly looking codes. You can get one for free. You can link it to a website where you have a form that is going to be provided by whatever email marketing platform you use. And that is where, you have it linked there, and you can make, a nice little graphic. You can laminate it. You can put it on your table. You can put it at checkout. You can put it at corners, like you and I call them hot spots, right? But they're the corners that people always have to pass if they're like looking, if they're shopping, right? If you have a an area where you do like sampling, put another little one there. And all people have to do is just open their phone's camera. When they scan it, it pops up the URL and they just tap on it and it goes right to that web page. And then all they have to do is like put in their first name, put in their email address, and it will automatically get them on the list. And what you can do is you can do different things to like incentivize them, right? So that might be like a special promo, like if you join the list today and get 10% off your first order, or get a free item, or just all sorts of different things. Get an ebook with recipes, or whatever it might be, whatever makes the most sense for your business. So that way people feel compelled to do that, right? And then, so that is one way that you can do it. Another is something that we used to do is thinking about cross promotions and collaborations. So, for instance, I know when I worked for you, since we had vegetables, and then other folks would have, let's say, poultry, right? We would combine and do a joint dinner where they would provide the proteins, we would provide the veg, and then we would each put out invites to our collective audiences, right? So then when our people from each of our audiences showed up, if they didn't know that other business before, they certainly did after. And so then at an event like that, it can be the kind of thing where now they know about you, and now they can get on your email list, right? Now they get to experience you. They can get on your email list. They can, start following you in other places if you have social media, any of those things, right? You can also, if you're doing different events that you participate in, that might not be like a regular market, but like a special, like a health and wellness expo, or any of those things, right? Again, put that QR code out, make it as easy as possible for people to join. And then really just, and also like if you have a self-serve farm stand, again, make sure that it's there. Make sure it's on the homepage of your website. Make sure it's just basically anywhere that people might be coming across you. Make it as easy and compelling as possible for people to want to sign up.
Yeah. And obviously in the online world, we tend to give like free gifts to get people to sign up. I mean, with your farm, it's easy to say, give you a collection of recipes, or 10% off your next order, or there's a host of different things you can easily do to kind of encourage folks to join you.
Definitely. And especially like, I know, you guys have a bunch of different, cool downloads that are like, what I think, like salad, like you have a salad dressing one for your, like different products. And you have so many different, like for like, I think the fire cider one, like you have all sorts of different things that people can get in exchange for their name and email address.
So like in the spring, we do one for like simple tips for gardening. We don't do a peach one because those just sell so well, just direct to sale. But I think if we were trying to build for peach pre-orders, the 3 weeks before that, we could probably put out like a top peach recipes or simple ways to preserve peaches email would probably, or ebook would probably be like super helpful for folks. But for like meat farmers, I think it would probably be like 6 steps to cook the perfect steak. Or, how to use a beef bundle or something like that would be great there too. So there's so many different options you can do. One thing I would say is, though, we've made way too many ebooks or, digital downloads, I guess is a better way to call it, that fell flat. So make sure it's something that your people are interested in. So maybe start the idea as a social media post and then move it into an ebook or a download or a worksheet.
Yeah.
If it works.
Yeah, and if you already have folks, like if you're already at a market or somewhere that you are interfacing with regular customers, people who already know, like, and trust you and are buying from you, ask them, like, is there anything that maybe, information that you would like to have from us, or that when you first started shopping with us or started buying, local or seasonal or grass-fed or whatever, that you wish you knew that, we could have given you in a guide for free, that would have been helpful. Or another way that you can think about it is, are there questions that you are consistently answering for people, that people always have that same question? Well, chances are that's a good thing to think about in terms of like, is there a way to explain that for free in, 1 to 2 pages? That could be something that gets, emailed out when they download.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And then sometimes still like a paper sign up is good too. But the problem with that is people don't write well anymore.
Yeah. It's hard. Can be hard to read. And yeah, for sure.
All right. So we've talked about how to get folks on our email list. Is there any platforms that you recommend that you've had good luck with that you like for hosting emails?
Yeah, so it's definitely worth looking and comparing, because different ones will have typically like a free level and then different levels for the amount of people on them, right? So you will kind of upgrade as you get more subscribers. You will then, at different thresholds, have to increase the price of your account. So some of the most common ones are MailChimp, MailerLite, ConvertKit, Flowdesk is another one. Drip is a slightly newer one. ActiveCampaign is one that is probably more robust than most folks listening would need. But are there others you can think of that I'm
those
forgetting?
are the top ones. You can always there's always new ones starting too. Obviously, like the ones that are tried and true that have been there a while, the ones you named. So we recently dumped ActiveCampaign because I was so frustrated with how they handled something, even though we've been with them for like 10 years now. And we went to ConvertKit. ConvertKit's not bad, but ActiveCampaign, yes, it's more expensive, but it is just much easier to use, much easier to understand. The flows are much more robust. Those are the two I have experienced. MailChimp, yeah, MailChimp works. It's been there a while. It's not as cheap as it used to be. They have definitely increased the pricing.
Yeah, for sure. And the nice thing too is, because, it can be overwhelming when you're looking, and pretty much all of the platforms now have videos when you go to the page, so you can look and see what it looks like. And you can also, a lot of them have free trials, and many of them will also have like free walkthroughs with people on the team. So like they can actually walk you through the back end and answer questions. And so you can kind of try before you buy. And it's really important that you find one that is going to work for you. And yes, you can always switch later. Like you were just talking, Michael, like you switched, I've switched. You can definitely always switch, but it's good to know, like if you're looking at something and you're just like, I feel overwhelmed, or this feels like too much, or they walked me through it and I still don't get it, but you look at another one and you're like, oh, my brain seems to understand this a little bit better. Like pick the one that you feel most comfortable with, at least to start out with. And then as you get more comfortable, like maybe later on you'll want to switch to something else.
Yeah, just get started. You're right. And some of those simple programs I think are easier to start with than some of the more advanced ones too. So like right now, the one that we're thinking of switching to is Klaviyo. And Klaviyo is specifically built for e-com because our business is moving more and more that direction. And it's so expensive. But what you can do with Klaviyo is so powerful too. But it's way more than 99.9% of farmers will ever need. It's more than you need because of what it does. So yeah, just get started, get simple, and you can go from there.
Yeah.
Let's talk scheduling, because I think that actually technically is where we can start getting a little bit more technical here.
Yeah, so the nice thing about any of these is that it is going to allow you the functionality to not have to send emails in real time. So there's a couple great things about this because I know, farmers and producers are really, really, really busy people. So one of the great things is that you can set up an email and then you can schedule a time that it goes out. So let's say that you go to market on Saturday mornings, and that means that, like, let's say Wednesday or Thursday, you want to send out your newsletter because you want to give people a heads up of what you're going to have and all of those things. But you're like, how am I going to do that? Because I'm really busy getting ready, like, to go to market those days. I'm doing all of the things that I need to do to produce and to prepare and all of that. So how am I going to find time to squeeze that in? One thing you can do is if Monday is your office day, you can always build out the email and then set it and schedule it so it can go out on that Wednesday or Thursday. And then it's just, you're out working, you're doing your thing, and it will send on its own to your list. Another nice thing is that when you have, let's say, people get on your list, you can do what is called a welcome sequence or like a nurture sequence, which is basically, a handful of emails that go out that just kind of tell the story about you, what your products are, like why you got started, what makes you different, et cetera, right? And those can be dripped out over the course of a few weeks, and you can write them all at one time, and you can set them and schedule them so that somebody gets on your list, and then you don't even have to think about it. You don't have to be like, oh my gosh, every day I have to check, did anyone join? I have to send them out the welcome email. The system is just going to do it for you. And after a while, after you've been sending various promotion emails, various newsletters, whatever, you can actually go back and take content from those and you can repurpose it and just reuse it and reschedule it over and over and over again. So if there are things that you always do year after year, promotions, whatever, you don't have to start from scratch all over again. Just make sure to update some like minor details and then you can put it back out there.
That's actually a great aspect there. And I think what we do is we send emails on Friday for Saturday. So what we do is our welcome sequence sends on Mondays. So that they're automatic when they get into the system, then they just get an email on Mondays for the next 6 to 8 weeks from us that do that whole welcome sequence. And that way we don't have to try to think about if it's going out, they're going to get 2 mails the same day because some people don't like that at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a lot of functionality with that. And also a lot of them are going to be like you can set up templates, which is really, really nice and also really time saving. So I know when I worked for you, one of the first things that I did, so I started, for anyone who doesn't know, I started just working at the market. And then I ended up taking on more and more responsibility. And one of those first roles was taking over the weekly newsletter. And we had, at the time, you were using MailChimp, and we had a template in there, which was the logo and like a picture of the farm at the top. I still remember it.
Yep.
And it was all in the brand colors. And then on the like right-hand side, there was a column that had info for the CSA members, like what was going to be the required item in the share that week and like some other important info. And then it had like in the main body was like updates from the farm that week. And then it had pictures from the farm. And then it had a recipe below, like a seasonal recipe. So that would be good whether you were a CSA member or you were just shopping at market. And then we would also have like specific call outs like for events or things you could sign up for, right? So what was really nice about that was all I needed to know from you was like anything that was like I just needed to know CSA item, and I just needed you to like text me some photos throughout the week. And then sometimes you would just, write that little blurb at the top, or have like, the produce manager write a blurb, or, sometimes there would be different people on the team, and I could just pop that in and send it out. And so I wasn't having to reinvent the wheel every week. I would just duplicate the same email every week, and then I would swap out the stuff in the template and send. So it was very, very efficient. And so once you get that template set up, or if you want to have a few templates for different things, once they're set, all you got to do is just duplicate, and it's going to be a huge time saver.
And I think it's important to point out that one of the main reasons people don't write emails is because they open the thing up and I'm not sure what to write. But if they've got that template that they can go through, and now they realize I need to write 2 paragraphs, I need a recipe, I need to put this in, I'm going to put in 2 pictures. That's a process is so much easier to follow.
Yes. Yeah. You don't have that blank page syndrome. And, in that way, like I said, if you have anyone else that you are working with, there might be somebody else on the team who is better or more knowledgeable about cooking and recipes than you are. So maybe it's like part of their job for the week to find a recipe and, pop it in. You could even, depending on, how your business is set up, if you have customers that are like raving fans and they love to share what they're making with you, like make it a highlight, make it a feature. Say like, tell us what you're making, send us a photo, send us a link to a recipe, or, tell us what you, how you did it. And like, we might feature you in the newsletter. Right. And that way, like that's taking something off your to-do list, because they're going to do it for you. Right. So there's all different ways that you can do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, farmers. Something that I've recently been paying attention to in our greenhouse is the amount of light and heat and irrigation in relationship to following the light and plant balancing. I've got Guillaume here from Orisha to chat about that.
Yeah, hi, Michael. Following the light, like the light is the first important part of growing, because that's what creates photosynthesis. So we want to really focus on that. We're starting with the light to find the right conditions for our plants to give their best.
Gotcha. And with that, how does the light impact the heating and irrigation?
Yeah, well, to have a plant that would produce as much as possible, you want to keep it balanced. And that balance, it's how it grows, basically, how it's going to use its energy created with the photosynthesis. And so the more light you have, the more heat you need, the higher the temperature you need in the greenhouse to process the sugar produced with this photosynthesis. A concrete tip for this is a day which is sunny, you want the temperature in the greenhouse to be higher than a day that is cloudy. So naturally, that's going to happen. But during the night, it's the same thing. The night following a day with that was super sunny, you want to keep it warmer than a night where it's been a cloudy day before.
Yeah, absolutely. And this can also help like prevent blossom drops.
Yeah, it's the whole thing about balance. If you have a non-balanced plant, you're going to have a bunch of problems that you're not going to understand. So if the plant doesn't have enough energy to produce fruits because all the energy is going somewhere else, then the flower is going to drop.
So then talk to us about how the Orisha system can manage this.
Yeah, we built the system so that it's really easy for farmer to just deal with it. Doing it manually would be a nightmare. But with Orisha, you can just enter the temperature you want for every light scenario, and the system will take care of everything for you. You don't need to think about the heater. You don't need to think about ventilation. It's going to happen for you. And same with irrigation. The more lights you have, the more water your plants are going to need because they're going to transpire more. And by doing that, you can avoid problems like bringing too much salt in your ground.
Absolutely. To find out more about Orisha, including their popular leasing option with no upfront costs, go to orisha.io. That is orisha.io. Also, download their free guide, Maximizing Your Greenhouse Income, at their website, orisha.io. And I think what we did is we traded with a CSA member. They got like a free share or a free partial share for coming up with some recipes and stuff for as well. So I know we're kind of now skipping right into the next one, which is crafting compelling content.
Yeah.
But that is something because, farmer typically in August does not have the time to do all this. So having help well, I'll let you take it away. So let's talk about the making sure that we have good content in our emails.
Yeah, I'm glad that you mentioned the trade there, because I think actually the current CSA that I'm a member of does that. Because he got really busy, and he's very, very consistent. Like every Sunday it goes out because we have until Wednesday morning to select our products. And I think I remember seeing him put something out a while back about like either a full or partial share credit for somebody that can help with like a portion of that. And yeah, so, compelling content, like you said, like it doesn't have to be a lot, right? It can be like 1 to 2 paragraphs, right? It doesn't have to be this novel. You don't have to be really clever or anything like that. It doesn't have to be like this whole thing. Just think about sort of like how you would normally talk to people, like how you would maybe talk to people at market if they were standing right in front of you, like how your sort of natural personality is, any of those things, right? Because that is probably like your brand persona is probably not that far off from like how you are as a person, right? Since you're the person selling the products that you're making most of the time. And so just think about, what are some of the things that are significant to you, right? That maybe you feel proud of, that you want to highlight, right? So, if it's the first week for strawberries, or if you just, processed, something new for the season, or got something back in stock, or whatever, you have an event coming up, like highlight that. The more excitement that you have about it, that is going to come through in the message to the people reading it on the other end, right? And it doesn't have to be over the top, like, it doesn't have to be excessively excited, right? But just think about, if you're like, I don't know what to talk about, right? Think about like, did anything interesting happen that week, or was it, anything out of the ordinary, or like, even if it was just sort of an ordinary week, like with farming, it changes, like even just running any small business, things can change. It's not like necessarily like working in an office where each week might sort of blend into the next, right? Like things change seasonally, things can like really go awry like in an instant, right? And so that's interesting to other people to kind of hear what you have going on. And so share a little bit of it, right? So, people get curious, especially if it's different from the life that they are living. So they like to see photos from, the farm, or from, even behind the scenes. Maybe you're like, I don't live on a farm. Like I make jam and I make it in a commercial kitchen. That's totally fine too. Like maybe take some pictures of yourself, as you're making the jam in the kitchen. Take some pictures of as it's in process, right? People nowadays, especially with social media, they like to see behind the scenes. They like to kind of know the whole like backstory of things as well. So put that in there. And so even in that instance, right, if that jam maker was buying peaches from you, let's say, like tell that story. Talk about like, I get them from Michael and this is his farm. And like, I go there, a couple times a season and I get these huge, right? Like that is something you can share, like a day in the life or a week in the life or any of those things. And then you can talk about it. Like make sure you get it, this week it's 2 for blah, 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 however many dollars you want to say. That's interesting. That is more interesting than just saying, hey, peach jam this week is 2 for $10, right? Like it's to have a little bit more of like a story or something interesting behind it is a lot more like, you're like, from a buyer's point of view, you're sort of like, oh, that's okay, cool. Yeah. Oh, like I now see why your jam is different than going to buy Smuckers at the grocery store, right? And so it sort of helps justify the price. It makes it feel unique and interesting, and it compels people to want to come to shop.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think too, with content too, is people don't necessarily always need to hear just about your product. If
Yeah.
you're building a persona of who you are, you can just talk about what's going on in your life.
Yeah.
They just want to know, what their jam maker's up to. Maybe, I mean, obviously, yes, you test a new variety, a new recipe in the kitchen, snap a picture of it and say, hey, can anyone guess what this new flavor is going to be called? That's great content. But also, hey guys, I'm off for the week, but I'm headed to the beach. These are the 5 things that are must do on every vacation I take, because that's still, your people are going to be interested in that.
Yeah, and especially too, if you go to any like conferences or special events or anything, like take pictures of that and share it, right? Again, even if it's not something like, maybe you're going to sell in a totally different state than where most of your like customers are, because you're part of an event and they can't even actually buy from you at it. Like that's still exciting for them to see, like, oh wow, they're going they're taking their product all the way across the country to go to this thing and, sell it at their, at that event or at that expo or whatever it might be. Or yeah, they're like, oh, they're at this conference and they're learning about permaculture, whatever that, like, people, you might think like, that's weird. Why would people find that interesting? But people do find it interesting because that is the benefit of buying from actual people versus like a nameless, faceless corporation, right? You can actually get to know a 360-degree view of who you're buying from.
I think that's important too. Yeah. Selling the whole person instead of just jam.
Yeah. And also, one other tip, if you are like reading any emails that you like or come across anything that you're like, ooh, that I found that interesting, or the way they said that really stuck out to me, save it. Save it as inspiration. Not that you have to copy it exactly, but if you found it interesting, chances are other people do as well. So again, that's going to help with that blank page syndrome of not knowing what to write. Be inspired by what is inspiring to you.
Absolutely. All right. So we've talked about content, and I think the other thing too is people can bank content. If you have a whole bunch of fun things that happen on the farm one week, don't feel like you have to share all of them. You can snap a picture and then come back and use that story later on. Yeah, that's easy to do too. Let's talk about constructing clear calls to action, because I think obviously if we're going to do all this work for emails, we want to make sure that the email is actually doing something for us, which a lot of time is helping make sales and things like that.
Yeah. So this is really, really important, because a lot of times business owners in every industry assume that the person reading or seeing the social media post or whatever knows what to do next, like knows your products, knows what to do next, knows all of it. And they don't. Even if they are a regular customer, do not assume that they know everything that is, happening and that you have, right? So make it very clear and make it engaging, right? So that could be something like, if you have an on-farm event, or if you are having a collaborative dinner at a restaurant in town, have it, rather than just like, link to ticket here, whatever, have it be like, grab your tickets before they sell out, or like, you don't want to miss like, our, once a year strawberry fest, or like, have something like that where it's like, people will be like, oh, okay, this is like special. This is something unique. This might be something that is for like a limited amount or a limited time or whatever, that people are actually going to want to either click on and purchase. Like maybe it's a promotion that's going away or a limited quantity or an event that will pass. Any of those things, make sure that people know that and that's very clear, and so that they don't accidentally miss out on it. So that is something important to think about. And again, you can do this as well if you are paying attention to what you notice and what like gets your attention, what stands out that you might click on. Think about like, oh, what was it about that thing that got me to click? So rather than like a button that just says buy now, if it says something more unique or more compelling, what did it say and what made you want to click on it, right? And then think about how can you adapt that in your own business for your own customers.
Yeah, a couple of things we'll use is learn more, because learn more is more typically it's not a hard buy now. Buy now is almost like let's get married. Learn more is more of the let's have a date sort of thing. And then we can also go fun with it too. Like in our peach emails, sometimes we'll say, click here for peach pies, jam and more, or something like that, because that gets people, yes, that's what I want. What's the desired outcome? So that's what we're also thinking about for the email. Is okay, how do we put that desired outcome in that button for them to click?
Yeah. And there's also a fun way, like, so to kind of bridge like compelling content and clear calls to action, especially if your brand is fun and not very like stiff and ultra professional. So I'm thinking about like, I remember like when we did the Farmer Olympics, right? Like we put those funny photos in the newsletter, right? And like people really loved that. So if you had like our team, actually this morning, we were like collaborating on emails, and one was like a picture of like this like blurry picture of sheep running that was like from our archive. And it was like all about how like, like time is running out because we have like a seasonal thing, like get ready for like the holiday season with your e-commerce, right? So it's like this funny thing, it's like these sheep are running, and the whole tone of the email was like how like, time is like running out, but in a very like funny, not salesy way, right? So there, it could be a way like if you have a picture of like your team, doing tug of war at the Farmers Olympics, you could kind of like weave in a thing about like, how people are going to be like fighting over your like, I don't know, like your first crop of sweet corn or something. So like get to the market early, right? Like that's funny. It's lighthearted. It doesn't feel like a hard sell, but it still lets people know like, oh, if I want that sweet corn, I better get to the market early,
Well, and it's not great to just wait until the first strawberry is ripe and then send an email saying, "Hey, come get your U-pick spots." Because typically what we've done that, and what you'll see is you'll actually see very few people book the first couple days because they've already planned things for that day.
Yeah.
So going ahead and starting the email 2 weeks out saying, "Hey, strawberry's about 2 weeks away. This is when we envision them coming here. So make sure to clear your schedule so you can come pick." We had a couple ladies who they said the last 2 years they haven't been able to get out to the farm and pick strawberries, and we've never had enough for them, and they were very disappointed. And I was like, okay, so how do we stop this next year? How do we make sure? And I think it came back down to is like we're not giving folks enough notice, so they can't clear their schedule. And so making sure that you do, yes, you can have a clear call to action, which is pick you pick, but if you don't prime them, that can also be as bad.
Yeah, and that's actually, I'm glad that you mentioned that, because two things. So one, that email our team was sending out today, so we're recording this mid-August. So the reason we are recording this in the summer to get food businesses ready with their e-commerce for sales that might not even start till like early to mid-November for them, is because we know that from having a business for so long, that it's going to take a while to like onboard those clients, get their assets, get, them set up and everything. so that we have enough lead time and they have enough lead time, because by the time the project's done, like if people are getting now, then they will be ready for those sales by the time they need to be. If we waited till, October 1st or October 15th, it would not give them enough time. It would not give us enough time. So we have to always kind of be thinking ahead. And so, and part of that is knowing your customers. So the second thing I want to say to that point is, in knowing your customer and talking to your customer and engaging with them regularly, and this is part of what email can do, like we were talking about before with asking questions through email, but also just engaging with them if you sell face-to-face at all, is learn about them a bit, right? Like, I know that the vast majority of the buyers at Market and our CSA members were busy moms of young kids. So
Correct.
if you, the producer, are not a busy mom of young kids, you might be like, I don't know what that reality is like. But as people are trusting you and you're seeing them regularly, like, ask them, right? Like, how far out are you planning, right? Like, are your kids in extracurriculars that make it hard to get here? Or, how far out are you booked, et cetera, et cetera. And that way you can know how far out do you need to be doing that? Or do you need to set up a wait list 6 weeks in advance so that they get a special email? You know what I mean? Like, but you can only know that through really knowing your customer and really engaging with them and finding out and then adapting to that.
Yeah, no, I think that's right too. And I think the other thing too is there are other tools that can be used. We talked email. The problem I think with email sometimes is that not everyone checks their emails every single day.
Yeah.
I have found that with our consumers. Obviously, me, I live in my email inbox because I'm communicating with people all over the world on a very regular basis. And so that's like the first thing I do. And not the first thing, but like one of the things I do first, and I get down and done in the morning. But is that a lot of people don't check it for multiple days. And that's what we found out with our peaches, because we do the peach pickups and we had people that just said, I didn't check my emails. Like, well, why didn't you? But anyway, using email to build a wait list that maybe is done via text can be incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
Text obviously costs more money, but it's very powerful because I think 90% of people open their texts within 10 minutes of receiving them. So one of the farms near us, they don't even do email newsletters. They only do text signups for their UPIC operation. And you sign up for every list differently. So if you want, blackberries, you sign up for the blackberry list. If you want strawberries, you sign up for the strawberry list, which is, again, they do their farm there differently. They are in a massive, very densely populated area. They've been there 20 years. So they do not need to try to push any products to their store. They probably could, but that's just not their farm. All they're trying to do is get people notified. So they're not trying to nurture. But I think, again, as small farms are in an ever increasingly complex and competitive marketplace, nurturing people through your email is going to be a huge part of getting those long-term customers.
Yeah, absolutely. And to that point, like, a good thing to remember is that if you come up with a regular timing of when you send stuff, then people will be more used to, this is when I'm kind of used to seeing their emails, and which isn't to say they're going to be like waiting by the computer for you to send it through, but people will just get more used to seeing it, right? And so if don't freak yourself out, like if you're used to sending them every Monday when you're in the office or something, and then something goes awry and you can't get it out, on that exact day, like that's fine. But the more consistent you can be with whatever that timing is, the better. And even if you're like, it's, in my busy season, it's way too hard. Again, I go back to what can you prep in the less busy time to kind of pre-schedule and have ready to go as much as possible, that you just, schedule it and send, or you maybe change a, subject line, and then and then it goes out. Another thing you can do, just on the topic of subject lines, is if you can do something that makes your emails stand out so people always know that you're you. So let's say you sell pork, okay? There's the little pig snout emoji, right? You could start every email with the pig snout emoji. And then what is going to happen is that your customers are going to subconsciously recognize, oh, that's an email from that farm, right? Like they're, even if they don't read it, they'll be like, oh, okay, I don't have time to read that right now, but like that reminds me, I do want to see what they have because, you know, whatever, we have a dinner party coming out, or, you know, and they will, it's easier for them to go back and find it in their inbox. It's easier for them to have that like brand recognition and remember. And so, not saying that everyone has to use emojis in their emails, but if you have something that is consistent that people are used to seeing, it's easier for them to, as soon as it pops up, for them to be like, oh, I know who that email is from. That is from that farm or that business that I shop at.
Absolutely. Yeah. Something unique about your emails that's going to also hopefully push people to open them too.
Yeah.
So one of the things, obviously, we send an email every week that kind of has like news and updates, but we make sure that at least and this is what we did back at on the farm, New York farm, Kilpatrick family farm, is we did a special of the week. So it was a special that was, you know, email only, that he had to go open the email to get. So that just helped increase open rate as well.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's true. That was, I think, in the side column as well, was the special of the week. The little call out at the,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. What are some final tips for folks?
Yeah. So I would say, kind of like you said before, you know, just get started. Like, it's really easy to hear all of this and be like, oh my gosh, it's like, that sounds like so many steps and I'm already so busy. And I like, where am I going to have time to do all of that? Really, like, just think about keeping it as simple as possible. Like, really and truly keeping it as simple as possible. Just, you know, look at maybe 3 different email platforms, right? Like, give yourself just that. Just say, like, I'm going to pick 3. I'm going to look through 3, whichever one, you know, seems like the best for right now. Like, we'll just go with that, right? Make a very simple template. Maybe it just has your logo and like just has a signature at the bottom with some very clear like website and contact info and things like that, so that those things are always in there. And then just think about, okay, when can I realistically probably sit down and write some of these and get them scheduled and have them go out? And like, what do I want to include, right? It could be 1 blurb from the week, 1 photo, and like something, you know, a special, a promo, something they could look forward to at market, or something they can, you know, purchase online through your online store, anything like that. And you're like, this is just all I'm going to do for now. And then like in 3 months, I'm going to come back to it and I'll just see. And you could even like, even your subject lines can just be like, you know, you can think of a format that is like interesting but also clear and to the point, and just like make that subject line. You don't have to make it super long. It will get cut off in the inbox anyway, so just make it like short but clear and to the point. And then just the consistency, the repetition, and also just getting people on the email list is a lot more important than worrying about getting it perfect, right? Just communicating, thinking about building a genuine, authentic relationship with people is way, way, way more important than like, if you look at Michael's emails and you're like, well, I could never. I mean, Michael's also been doing this for a very long time and has like a team, right? So don't like.
Yes, we have a team.
We have a team. So like, don't compare yourself to Michael, right? If you're just starting out, just start, and like people just trust that people want to hear from you, and you can always build on it later. But in the interim, the more you can start building that email list now, the better, because it's kind of like a savings account, right? It's like, it's, even if you wish you had started saving 10 years ago, the best time to start saving is today. So even if you're like, shoot, I should have started this email list when we first started the business, but I didn't, that's fine. Start it now and then go forward from here, because you'll still be able to get people on your list, and you'll still be able to grow that relationship, and then you'll still be able to sell to them.
Absolutely, yeah. And for those subject lines, something that I will do is I'll actually grab the copy, throw it in ChatGPT, and say, give me 6 or 8 subject lines. And a lot of the times, I will not pick any of those. But what it does is it gets my creative juices flowing, and it's like, oh, I could use that and that. It just gives you just options.
Yeah.
It just helps you, gives you a little bit more something to think about than just, because our brains sometimes are just, we're so, especially farmers, so dead tired at night when they're typically writing these. They're like, okay, yes, we got corn and beans this week. And there's really a lot more that you could do to hook people and pull them in.
Yeah, definitely. And I think too, to that point about not knowing, one thing I've told my clients for years and years and years when it comes to writing content is, like, going back to what I was saying about the free guide of the thing you answer all the time. If you find yourself having, like, any conversation with clients from, like, at market or wherever, right? It doesn't even have to be something that comes up all the time, but just something that you're like, oh, this was an interaction that I had this week that it made me think about my business in a different way, or it was, reminded me why I do what I do in the way that I do it, or just anything, right? Jot that down, like type it into the notes app on your phone, or record it as like a voice note. And that way, when you do get that time to sit down at 8 or 9 or 10 p.m. at night, you're like, wait, what was I going to write? You can open it and go like, oh yeah, that's right. I went in to get like gas and, a cup of coffee. And I was talking to that like old guy, and it and it like sparked this thought, and that, like, that's right. I want to tell my people like about that. Right. That's a hack. I would say a great hack that is like wonderful when your brain is tired. You can be like, oh yeah, I have inspiration to pull from. Here's what I want to talk about.
Absolutely. All right. So Erika, how can folks find out more about what you do, and how can they go experience that?
Yeah. So if you go to localfoodmarketing.com, we have tons of info. We have lots of resources. And also we are going to have a special free downloadable guide that Michael will have. It's going to be in the show notes. You'll be able to get it. And it is going to be ways that will help you get more email subscribers and grow your audience. So make sure when you're done listening, go check that out, download it, and then you can go through it. And of course, reach out to me. You can find me, Erika at localdifference.org. Reach out, say hi, ask me questions. But yeah, localfoodmarketing.com is where we're at. And, if you're part of an organization or anything that has funds that wants to do a collaborative project and the organization can help subsidize some or all of that, talk to me, because that is what we do. A lot of what we do is subsidized marketing technical assistance for farms and food businesses. So if you're like, oof, I want a new website, but we can't do it. If you belong to an organization that can write a grant or has funding, we can probably help. So make sure to reach out.
Awesome. Yes. And the show notes, so if you go to thrivingfarmerpodcast.com, the most recent episode will be this one. I don't even know what number it's going to be, so I can't do that. But go to the homepage, type in your name, Erika, then it will pop right up, and the link to that freebie will be in the show notes. All right, Erika, as always, thanks so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
So there you have it, another episode in the books. So I'd love if you would hop on over to iTunes and leave us a rating and a review. Those mean everything to us. We love to hear what you're thinking. If you have a podcast guest that you can recommend, please pop on over to the Thriving Farmer Podcast website and leave us a review. That's thrivingfarmerpodcast.com.